Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to be with you. It's really a pleasure to practice in community. So usually when I do meditation sits with IJS, I try and find some meaning in the Torah portion of the week. And this week's Torah portion is so rich. I just want to mention a few things that come to mind from this week's Torah portion. I actually wrote them down. That one could study, discuss, try and make meaning out of. So this week we have leadership succession. Right? So the conversation around Moses offering a sense of authority to Joshua before the promised land, an investment of authority from Moses to Joshua. We have women raising their voices and being named in their own right. Most of the women in the Torah are named in passing and oftentimes described in relation to other powerful men. And in this week's Torah portion, we have women named on their own and standing up for their rights and actually changing inheritance laws. A very powerful passage. We have a conversation around zealotry, right, and extremism. There's a mention of decision-making technology that the priests were using. Like the idea that there is a technology for decision-making with Urim Thummim. There is a conversation about Sukkot. And all of the ins and outs of celebration of Sukkot. There's conversation about atonement for transgressions. It's a very, very rich Torah portion. I sometimes get overwhelmed by how, you can take this one Torah portion and study it for a year, more, a lifetime, right? You can delve so deeply into it. I actually was deeply touched by a piece that I read in Abraham Joshua Heschel's book that he wrote about the villages and the Jewish life in Eastern Europe hundreds of years ago, and the idea of pilpul. Pilpul is this concept of finding meaning in text and arguing and debating for the sake of finding truth, but really in hair-splitting ways, right? Like we can delve deeply into a text and debate about its meaning. And I want to read this to you. I thought this was very sweet. He said, "Poor Jews whose children knew only the taste of potatoes on Sundays and Mondays and Tuesdays, sat there like intellectual magnates. They possessed whole treasures of thought, a wealth of information, of ideas and sayings of many ages. When a problem came up, there was immediately a host of people pouring out opinions, arguments, quotations. One raised a question on a controversial passage in Maimonides' work, and many vied with one another with attempts to explain it, outdoing one another's subtly and dialectic distinctions or citing out-of-the-way sources. Their stomachs may have been empty, but their minds were crammed with the riches of Torah." That's really beautiful, right? We live in a moment that is rich in questions, right? Questions about what is going on in the world, questions about the future, questions about its impact on our communities. And so much of our time is spent in hair-splitting opinions, debates, and attempts to understand or make meaning of the moment. And the offering I have for us for our meditation today is really about a different way we might approach meaning making, and a different way we might come into a sit or a meditation in which, instead of engaging in debate and argument, an inner argument or opinion making, we can just listen. Listen to the wisdom we carry within ourselves. Listen to perhaps a transcendental kind of voice, right? Like a voice that is more infinite, a soul experience. And I'm so sorry if my sound is cutting in and out. I apologize. I'm not sure. It may be that my Wi-Fi is unstable today. My apologies. One time I had this experience of feeling really overwhelmed with meaning making, or trying to make sense out of text, out of life. And my teacher Estelle Frankel, reminded me that the Hebrew word for meaning is mashma'ut. So I wonder if you can hear the roots there, mashma'ut, that within the word for meaning in Hebrew, we already hear the word shema, to listen. So oftentimes when we begin to chase our own tails in trying to make meaning out of complex situations, what I invite you to do is to sit into silence and let us listen to our own inner experience, our own inner wisdom, and our bodies, our experience. So I invite you to place your feet flat on the ground beneath you. I have to lower my seat in order to reach the ground, so I'm going to do that. I invite you to do the same thing. I invite you to just come into presence. Opening the shoulders, softening the heartscape, softening the face, the space between the eyebrows, softening the muscles around the eyes and the mouth. Feeling into the stability of the earth beneath you, the stability of the chair that is holding your body. And noticing if it is possible to sit in a posture of openness and also stability. Being open doesn't require a lot of effort. And then bringing your attention on the breath. Actually, in this week's Torah portion, and someone asked, what is the Torah portion? It's Pinchas. In this week's Torah portion, Moses addresses God with these beautiful words. The source of breath of all flesh. Adonai Elohei Ruchot Bekol Basar. The source of all breath, the source of breath of all flesh. And so as you bring your attention your focus on the breath, on the neshama, entering and leaving the body. Perhaps we might connect to that image of the source of breath of all flesh. Really inviting the body to relax, to rest, giving it the opportunity to listen. Listen internally. Let us sit in silence for the next 10 minutes or so. And I will alert you to the end of our time together with a poem. Notice where you are now. Notice where your mind is. Gently bring it back to the breath. Back into presence. We are a people of the book, a people with a brilliant heritage of text study and meaning making. And I feel profound gratitude for the spaces in which we set aside the text and turn inward and listen. The spaciousness we create together is also beautiful and necessary. As we bring our meditation to a close, I want to share Leonard Cohen's words on prayer. Not knowing where to go, I go to you. Not knowing where to turn, I turn to you. Not knowing how to speak, I speak. Not knowing what to hold, I bind myself to you. Having lost my way, I make my way to you. Having soiled my heart, I lift to you. Having wasted my days, I bring the heap to you. The great highway covered with debris, I travel on a hair to you. I invite you to bring your awareness back into our shared space. You can open your eyes and take a moment to look around and just notice the quality of light around you before focusing on any one object. Perhaps retaining some of the spaciousness you may have glimpsed when your eyes were closed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marita. Let's seal the practice. Those of you who are in mourning or observing a yurt site, or if it's your custom to join in the mourner's Kaddish, are welcome and invited to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we hope you can stay present for a few moments to be present for those who are and offer them your compassionate support. You can put the name or names of those in whom you're mourning in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. And if you are joining me, please rise in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yit Gadal, Yit Kadash,
Shmei Rabbah,
Amen.
Hayechon, Yomechon, Gala, Bisman, Pari, Shmei Rabban, Lame, Omaya, Arbi, Tomam, Ase, Yit Hadar, Yit Vavem,
Shalom,
Shalom
Shalom Aleinu, Kol Yisrael, Kol Yoshe Tevel. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Friends, thanks for joining us today. If you're leaving now, just inviting you to join us tomorrow. Rabbi Jordan Ben-Dad Appel will be here both to host and to lead the sit tomorrow. We're excited that Jordan will be leading. On Thursday, Zach Newman of Hamakom, and on Friday, Roland Blackman of Hamakom, both in the UK, will be leading us in our sit. So that's the lineup for the rest of this week. And we hope you'll join us. If you're leaving us now, you are welcome, as always, to stay on and continue to sit for that beautiful guidance that Marita offered. You can turn off the sound on your computer or device and just use this container of this community to continue with your practice if you like. And you're welcome as well to join us to reflect on your experience, which as always, you can put in the chat. And if you have a question you'd like to raise, you can put that in the chat as well. Just preface it by writing question all in caps. So thanks so much, Marita, as always. Just beautiful guidance. Before I get to my question, I want to note your internet was a little unstable. We heard 98%, I think. It was like a little delay, but it was interesting to me because today I felt like you were inviting us to really kind of frame our practice as a listening practice, right? And so whenever there's a glitch, as we know, like, I don't know, the lawnmower goes by, or, the alarm goes off, or life happens when we're, expecting to be in this unperturbed, quiet place. Teachers always say, oh, this is a great opportunity for practice, right? So when you cut out, which was really just for a moment, it was never for an extended time, and it was only a couple of times. We got your teaching. I was really noticing what happens in that moment. It really was a practice opportunity because I was like immediately rushing to complete your sentence. And I noticed my inclination to complete your sentence, and I said, like, well, I don't know if she would have said that. And so I stepped back and said, like, I'm just going to continue, there's a pause here. I'm going to continue to listen for when Marita's voice comes back. So I just wanted to invite you just to start with that because, sometimes stuff happens. This was minor, very minor, but it was an opportunity. So I want to invite you because this stuff happens in every setting. So what would you say about these kinds of, practice opportunities we get when things don't go exactly according to plan? How do you handle it? Because it seems like you were aware of it a little bit. So like maybe you can share your process a little bit.
I'm trying to put myself in the seat on sort of in the position of being on the receiving end of an experience where there's a glitch, which has happened. Yeah, I part of the practice is patience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of the practice is to stay, like that word, to stay where you are, no matter what, and be open to what happens. There's the unpredictability of our own experience, our own thoughts. Notice what arises, the annoyance, right? Like when we feel annoyed, sort of looking at it from a place of just normal human experience. And softening around it. I think you're right. I think it is a great opportunity for practice.
Well, there's this, then there's a sense of, oh no, it's not going right, right? And then you say like, no, it's all this is I think I'm just lifting it up because it feels like for me and my experience has been like, this is a very, very valuable aspect of the practice of when things are not going as we expect them to go, right?
Yeah,
Um, which is constantly, um,
absolutely.
right. How do we deal with it?
Yeah.
And it's a moment of notice like, oh, it's not going as I expect. I don't like that. Unpleasant, like fix it. Um, and then, but the core of your teaching today was about listening, which is
Yeah.
about not fixing it, which is
Mm.
about, you talked about sablanut, about waiting. Somebody else said it was practice in bitachon, of trust.
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
oh, will the voice ever come back? Is she going to speak again? Is this going to
Yeah.
work? Is this going to be like, um, so this is not knowing and listening. I want to like steer the conversation now towards the listening part.
Yeah.
And it had never struck me that Hebrew word for meaning, mashma'ut,
Mm.
uh, I'm going to put it in the chat, the shoresh, the root is shema,
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
So what do you make of that? What do you like? What's your
Well,
Josh on that?
I'll tell you that I guess I'll backtrack just a moment. So a year ago, my then 17-year-old son was reading Viktor Frankl's book, Man in Search of Meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so embarrassed because I had used quotes from the book, especially in my meditation teaching, right? So, like the quote
Mm-hmm.
about, between stimulus and response, there's freedom. And, I feel like it's an often quoted
Mm-hmm.
thing by Viktor
I
Frankl.
quote it like every day.
I was really embarrassed. I had never actually read the book.
Mm-hmm.
So I read the book and I really studied it and I read it multiple times and even brought it into a study group. And I felt this tremendous, and maybe it had to do with, October 7th, just the time in the world that we're living through. I felt deeply overwhelmed by the question of what is meaningful, like what is meaning in my life.
Mm.
And I like paralyzed, right? Like, is meaning that I have a family, is meaning what I do for work, is meaning like none of it felt true and authentic, and none of it felt like it fit. And it felt like it was changing all the time. I would change my mind about what is most meaningful to me in my life. And so I brought this up with Estelle Frankel, who's a teacher of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like with this teaching about mashma'ut as a practice of listening, the gift that she gave me is the freedom to explore the dynamic and ever-changing experience of what is meaningful. And
You said it one more time.
the the gift that she gave me
Mm-hmm.
with listening as a practice for meaning finding is what she gave me is the dynamic, ever-changing nature of what is meaningful. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning changes. Like what was meaningful to me when I was 20 years old is no longer meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
What was meaningful to me as a single person is no longer meaningful as a parent. What was meaningful to me as a parent of toddlers is no longer meaningful as a parent of, teenagers. And so it gave me the freedom to come back into the relationship with meaning that is an everyday question, right? And Estelle actually makes that connection between question and quest,
Mm.
right? Like it's almost like meditation and coming into silence is a daily quest for meaning.
Mm. I
Uh,
maybe just amend that to say it's a moment, like it's a awareness of moment by moment, right? Seeking
yeah,
meaning and having that not, be it's elusive, but the process of listening for, right?
yeah,
Um, I mean, it fits really well, I think, with a lot of rabbinic Judaism's way of understanding revelation, which is that it is constant, that there's like the broadcast, at Sinai is ongoing, maybe fainter, as time goes by, but
Right.
it's always accessible, in the kol damama daka, in the still small voice, right? That we're listening and trying to attune ourselves. Just want to note also that where we are on the calendar, that today's the 17th of Tammuz, which marks the breaching of the walls of Jerusalem, beginning of the 3 weeks the kind of the low point of the Jewish year. Like we're heading down, folks. Sorry,
Yeah.
down to Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, and then an ascent after that, spiritually speaking. Um, um, that we are listening for that still small voice. And interesting that that happens often in the cracks, right? In that, like there was a crack in the crack in a couple of cracks in the broadcast today where like I woke up when that happened. I don't know if others share that experience, right? I want to get to a question that's in the chat about the distinction between listening and hearing. Ms. Harris's question: when we listen, Harris wrote, typically listen for something like the next word, a specific idea, etc. So that's what I was doing. I was listening. But when we try to hear, it might be more open-ended to hear what's there.
Yeah.
And Shema, the root for that, I think there are other Hebrew verbs for listening. Maybe Shema is, is about hearing.
Yeah.
What do you think about that distinction?
Yeah, I remember reading an essay by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who, he just explored that aspect of the Shema and the variety of ways in which we listen and hear. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's wonderful. I think you're absolutely right. There is a distinction. I think what I was trying to do with this teaching, and in a way, I'm sort of workshopping this idea on meaning. I think in a way, what I was trying to do is say, like, look, Abraham Joshua Heschel is describing, these how much we invest in our children learning Torah and being able to debate and argue, and their bellies are empty, but their minds are full, right? Like we put so much emphasis on intellectual exploration of the text. And I don't know, I sometimes get overwhelmed. And I feel like in this moment, especially with there's so much going on in the world. And I feel like I'm constantly, A, I'm being bombarded by information, and B, I'm seeking it, right? Like I'm trying to understand what's happening, what's going on. I'm trying to understand what's going on in this text. How can I apply it to my life? How, here we're talking about succession of leadership, and maybe that's relevant, right? Like I'm trying to make sense of this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really appreciate the moments of no thingness, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Right.
moments of not making sense, the moments of just remembering, that the source of breath is the source of breath of all, right? So it's just, I think it gives me rest and respite from the intensity of the world around us right now.
This is so rich. There's so many different aspects, I think, that tie in, like what you just mentioned about like the space, the nothingness, which in Jewish mystical tradition is can be described as ayin, the the no thing, and how the paradox of that being a very uncomfortable place, like not knowing, having a question, listening, waiting, trusting. There's a paradox there of feeling vulnerable and unstable, but that is the place of ultimate stability, security, and safety. Like ultimately, the sukkah represents that, like spatially in some way, and that's where we're really.
And it's as much part of our tradition as the pilpul, like as the hungry children being able to debate Maimonides. Like it's as much part of who we are.
Yeah. All right. A pleasure as always, Marita. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Really, what a pleasure for all of us. Jordan, thanks so much for holding our space. And everyone, look forward to, well, you have Jordan Bend out of Pell tomorrow, so that's a treat to look forward to. I'll see you back on Thursday with Zach Newman, and hope everyone stays safe and well. Okay. Many blessings, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Be well.